HQ in Nashville, Tennessee, to wherever you're cheering on your Tennessee Titans. The So Bros Network presents the Unofficial Titans Podcast.
Welcome back for another episode of the Unofficial Titans Podcast right here on So Bros Network, powered by Memo's Mexican Kitchen out in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, the best Mexican food in the Nashville area for my money. I am your host for the show, Big Natural Stoney Keeley, the EIC at SoBrosNetwork.com, Titans film analyst, NFL draft analyst at Stacking the Inbox as well. Mine's right, ass is tight. As we bring in my co-host for the Unofficial Titans Podcast, he is Cinderella Man, One Take O, coming to us from the dad zone, outspoken Owen Reed. Owen, we actually have a football game to discuss on this week's show. How you feeling, man? What are the vibes like?
Hey, everybody. Hey, Stoney. The long streak of no football, of an intense, deathly summer is almost over, and we have football on the horizon. I'm happy. How are you, buddy?
Man, I'm doing great. The weather, it's like, I think they said on 3HL yesterday, it's going to be 85 degrees at kickoff, which compared to what we've been feeling here in the Nashville area is going to feel like air conditioning outside. So
I can handle that.
I've got a couple of leaves that are starting to turn and fall in the backyard. And sure, maybe that's just because it's so hot and it's literally killing the vegetation. But I look at it as a sign like, oh man, it's starting. It's starting. Mother Nature's clock is starting to wind down just a little bit. But it does feel like football season is going to be here before you know it. I don't know about you, man, but I'm relieved that we actually have news to talk about. We've got a depth chart to talk about. We've got a game to preview, and it's not that there's anything wrong with off-season content, but it's not just off-season stuff where people are just arguing about T'Vondre Sweat for the millionth time. Like, there's actual stuff to talk about. So I'm doing well, man. And I told you, like, before we started recording, I'm having a good little Thursday right now. I've already got Film Friday done. That's going to be up on stackingtheinbox.com tomorrow morning. I looked at the L'Jarius Sneed film, kind of how I expect him to impact this Titans defense, what the makeup of this Titans defense under Denard Wilson should look like, what I think it'll look like. And, I'm getting shit done today. And ultimately, that's all you can ask for. Do you have any plans for the game? Are you going to take it in all four quarters like a sicko just because football's back, or do you have other weekend plans?
I mean, buddy, when they say football's back, I'm there. Like, I watched the Hall of Fame game up until the weather, and
I did
too.
Too.
At that point, the game had already fallen apart. Like, it was getting ugly. Coverage was nonsense on both sides. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to try to watch as long as I possibly can. I'm still interested in learning about these, the new rules, the new
sure.
kickoff, hip drop tackles, stuff like that. So it's interesting to watch those and see how, we're setting up the season. But yeah, I'm interested in seeing how this depth looks for the Titans. So, I'm around for these third string guys that aren't going to make it. I'm just happy football's here.
I'm with you, man. What do you make of this mosh pit gimmick? Because I know Sean posted something about it in our Sobro Slack group, and I haven't heard a whole lot about it, but there's going to be I didn't read the press release, but I know you said you were going to kick Sean in the head in the mosh pit. So maybe I'm hoping you can provide a little update there on what that's going to be like.
I do believe my full quote was that I was going to scissor kick Sean in the back of the head in the mosh pit.
That's right.
But no, I was kind of reading over it. It seems like it's going to be like an exclusive offer that you have to reach out to the Titans to be accepted for. You have to send in a video on why you belong in the mosh pit. And they're going to be seated near where they had the live band performing. They're going to be offered exclusive tickets and exclusive season tickets at that. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be something that I think the common fan can get into, which kind of sucks.
Yeah.
It seems like it's going to be an inner circle kind of thing, if I'm being honest, just reading on it. But I like the idea. I kind of like just the thought that instead of just having all of these exclusive boxes and all that for kind of the higher ups, the rich that can afford these kind of situations, they're trying to find a dedicated fan base to make the environment more exciting. So I think it's a good idea. Will I ever be in it? Probably not, but I like it.
Have you ever been in a legit mosh pit before? I don't know what kind of concerts you were going to back in the day, but you ever end up in one?
I'm not a big mosher, honestly, because if somebody hits me, I'm pissed off.
Yeah,
I don't really see the full appeal of we're slamming into each other, but it's fun. So I've been on the wrong end of a mosh pit before. I didn't like it. It's not for me. No, thank you.
Listen, I'm 6'2". At the time I was going to shows, I was probably 220. This is probably like 60 pounds ago. I felt like I was tailor-made for a mosh pit, but I didn't want anything to do with it. If people started, I'd go into hardcore and metal shows back in the day, Rocket Town, Exit In, all that stuff. If y'all started moshing or doing your hardcore dancing, swinging your fists and your feet around, I'm ducking and I'm getting the hell out of Dodge, because I'm a big ass target. And that's the thing that I don't think people realize about the mosh pit. If you're a big guy, you get in there, it's harder to kind of navigate and maneuver around all the other people that are moshing. So you end up just slamming into everybody, and it's not fun, man. I don't want to get kicked in the face. I don't want to get kicked in the nuts. I see a mosh pit and I'm heading the opposite direction. There was one time I went to River Stages and Story of the Year was playing, and we all got right up front because we didn't think there was going to be a mosh pit during Story of the Year. It's emo shit. So I'm like, oh, we're going to be safe. This is going to be cool. One song end and I see the people circling behind me. I actually dipped out. I just left all my friends there. I'm like, I'm getting the fuck out of Dodge on this. I'm not going to be a part of this. I ran from the stage and actually walked up the pedestrian bridge and watched the rest of the Story of the Year set from the top of the pedestrian bridge. That's how much I avoided mosh pits.
I have no problems with a mosh pit. If that's your thing, do your thing. But Stoney, I think we're just standing in the back sipping beer kind of concert goers.
Bingo. You said it, brother. You said it. All right. Well, we do have some Titans football to talk about this week, though I could sit and relive the glory days of all the hardcore shows I went to back in the day. But before we do, I do want to talk a little bit about Memo's Mexican Kitchen, the sponsor for today's show. Like I said, in my opinion, it's the best Mexican food in the Nashville area. It's worth the short drive out to Mount Juliet. They're just a mile north of the I-40 exit at Mount Juliet, and I got some birria nachos in my future, I believe. You go there, you get you a good margarita. Like I've said before, I think I'm the only person that gets the gin and tonic at the Mexican restaurant, but I'm getting the gin and tonic there, and they have a good seasonal gin and tonic for every season. Get a nice drink, get started with some grilled jalapenos, some chips and salsa, some queso, and then get those birria nachos. I've talked about the birria, the bowl of birria, the enchiladas suizas, talked about the steak quesadilla, the good quality steak they use in their food there. But I haven't talked about the birria nachos. The best quesadilla I've ever had in my life. They do it in nacho form. Throw some pinto beans on there, some onions, the nachos, a little bit of the queso over it. The crisp of the chips, the good texture it adds. Man, it's a great dish. It's a good hearty dish. I've yet to have a disappointing dish at Memo's Mexican Kitchen. We were there for the Hot Read podcast a few weeks ago. Stopped in, a couple weeks after that, and Katie told us that a few people had been in saying that they watched the show and heard about the place and wanted to come try it. I'm grateful for you guys going out there and giving Memo a shot, because I want all of Nashville to know about this place. All right, so y'all keep going, keep telling them Stoney sent you, keep telling them Sobros Network sent you, and we're gonna pack that place out because it deserves the recognition that we give it here, and it deserves more. So, and I think the Nashville Scene's Best of Nashville voting is out as well, and you can vote for Memos in the best restaurant in Wilson County category. So go do it. memosmexicankitchen.com if you want to check out their menu. Again, they're just a mile north of I-40 off the Mount Juliet exit. All right, Owen, let's talk Titans. They signed Quandre Diggs. Diggs is a guy that I love adding to this safety rotation. I said it on Football and Other F Words on this week's show, but I think the weakness in the defense as they had put it together so far, damn it, hang on just a second. Bucky's got his fucking claw stuck in the curtain. Okay, no, never mind. The situation has remedied itself. All right. I said it on Football and Other F Words this week that I think the seam routes and the stuff kind of up the spine of the defense was a susceptibility for how Denard Wilson's unit had been constructed so far. Damn it, stop putting your fucking claws in the curtains. Get down. And I think it was because the Titans just didn't have a lot of turn and run defenders, like guys that offensive coordinators look at and say, that's an advantageous matchup for us. Let's get Travis Kelce on Jack Gibbons, or, let's get a speedy slot receiver on Jamal Adams. Elijah Molden, as much as I love the guy, I love his tape, I don't think he's necessarily a turn and run guy. I think Quandre Diggs can still be a turn and run guy, playing safety, hovering over the middle of the defense, capping the middle of the field. I think he can help strengthen that potential weakness in this defense. He's still got plenty of juice left in the tank. He had some good tape in 2023. When I was studying Jamal Adams for Film Friday a few weeks ago, I kept coming back to Diggs and just thinking, man, can the Titans just go ahead and sign this guy already? And I do wonder, it does concern me a little bit because I'm a big Elijah Molden guy. It does kind of worry me a little bit. Like, how does this staff view him? Are they not high on Elijah Molden? Is that why they've added 2 safeties in the last month? But I think to me, it speaks more to Denard Wilson's scheme and his plans with multiple defensive backs. The buzzwords this week have been 3 safety sets. I think we probably will see more 3 safety sets, and I think you're going to see Adams, Diggs, and Hooker on the field at the same time. I think you're probably going to see Hooker, Diggs, and Molden on the field at the same time. And hell, the way Brian Callahan's pumping up Matthew Jackson lately, and I'm seeing that he's getting interceptions in camp, they might keep 5 safeties and roll with Matthew Jackson in the mix as well. So the more I think about it, the more I think that this probably is indicative of the type of system that Denard Wilson wants to run, the number of defensive backs that he wants to deploy and utilize, and less to do with a skepticism or pessimism about Elijah Molden. Where do you sit on the Diggs signing, Owen, and what do you think it says about how this defense is going to operate?
Yeah, I like the Diggs signing. It's always good to have that kind of safety numbers for safeties, no pun intended. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure they said that Diggs has been a consistent 16-game player, 17-game now, for the past 4 seasons.
Yeah, and he's been to a few Pro Bowls in that time period too.
Yeah, I mean, this is all good stuff. This is stuff you want. So, I mean, I think it's great.
How do you feel about Elijah Molden? I mean, do you feel like they needed an upgrade, or is it just the principle of get bodies there because you're going to use a lot and there might be injuries?
I mean, I think there's always room for improvement on it. Molden was there to fill the spot, kind of, I don't want to put it like that, but, that was the best we had at the time to work with. And I think that bringing in Diggs is an improvement upon it.
Fair enough. So another bombshell happen within like days of each other. Saahdiq Charles, who was in line to be the starter at right guard, and I've seen some people suggest that the reps were split between Charles and Radens. To my knowledge, that only happened because Charles started missing a few practices for personal reasons. Every bit of information that I have at my disposal from people who were there, from people that have reported on this, is that Charles has been the guy at right guard for pretty much the entirety of the spring and summer. So this was your starter at right guard that has decided to walk away from football altogether. And Brian Callahan, his teammates didn't have a whole lot to say about the matter, but the theme was pretty universally, you'd have to ask him why, but our thoughts and prayers are with the guy. We're thinking of him. It sounds to me like he had something going on in his life that commanded his attention. And I've talked to a couple of people in the media that kind of feel the same way. So whatever it is, obviously, of course, we are thinking about Saahdiq Charles and hoping the best for him, but it does open up a door at the right guard position that presumably Dylan Radens would be next in line to fill. Now, Mike Herndon brought up an excellent point on Football and Other F Words yesterday that I hadn't really considered. It was reported that the first person I saw it was our guy Easton Freeze at Broadway Sports and the Hot Read podcast, say that Radens was splitting first-team reps with Andrew Rupsich at right guard. And Mike kind of spun that as, I don't know what that says about Radens, that they were just immediately like, here, Andrew Rupsich, you're getting half the reps too. It's going to be a competition. That sort of deployment wouldn't necessarily indicate a confidence in Dylan Radens. I think Radens is a great athlete. I think he's capable at guard. I think he's put better tape out there at tackle. But the thing that I sort of differentiated between he and Charles was the element of power that Charles had to his game, power in his hands, sturdy stance, hard hitter when reaching the hole, that sort of thing, an element of power that Radens didn't necessarily have. You hope that maybe adding on all this weight, bulking up, adding muscle this offseason translates to an increase in that power that seems to be missing from his tape, that tenacity, that dog, if you will. But I don't know, man. It doesn't sound to me like this this coaching staff is completely sold on Radens being the guy. What is your faith level like in Dylan Radens coming into this year, changing coaching regime? Now he's under Bill Callahan. Can he finally put it all together and win this right guard job and really take command of it? How are you feeling levels of optimism with that happening?
Yeah, I kind of feel like it's hard to go back on tape with Dylan Radens.
Yeah.
You know, he ended up playing 4 different places on the line last year.
Bingo.
Left tackle, left guard, right tackle, right guard. You know, so he was never kind of in a position to get comfortable anywhere. He did play through a lot of injury, but that being said, he also gave up 5 sacks. So I don't know. Maybe I feel like consistency can't help but to help that situation. So maybe Radens could, you know, kind of settle into right guard, and that's the spot for him. But I think you mentioned it. It's kind of that issue with strength. You know, Radens ended up on his butt a lot last year. You know, if you're going to be in that right guard position, we're not as focused about, you know, the agility as much as it is just, can you not get bull rushed and knocked down? And I think that's where Saahdiq Charles had the advantage. I think that was why he was going to be the clear-cut number one guy. So can Radens do it? I'm not sure, but I feel like, you know, he deserves a shot. He deserves a chance. I think that the tape last year was kind of inconclusive.
I'm with you, man. I don't think I could have said it any better myself. I think while there's reason for optimism, and You hope that kind of streamlining his role and allowing him to fixate on one specific spot helps him. I don't think the tape really tells us that he's a lock to be successful in this role. I thought Brent Doherty asked him about it. He played the clip on 3HL yesterday, how kind of just focusing in on right guard has helped him. And he kind of acknowledged that, yeah, it has helped to just kind of get into one spot with one role. And you hope that translates because it's a position that, man, the offensive line needed a lot of overhaul this offseason, and it's kind of thin on depth at this point with Saahdiq Charles down at that right guard spot. So you hope for the best. It's going to be something that's interesting to watch throughout the course of the preseason. The depth chart was released this week, the first unofficial depth chart. I thought there was some interesting stuff on there. Some of the rookies that were way behind on the depth chart, as I said, it kind of made me wonder, like, are they trying to motivate Cedric Gray to like show him here's where you're at in our mind on paper in physical form with something he can set his two eyes on and say, this is what you've got to do to leapfrog Garrett Wallow and Chance Campbell, who were ahead of him on the linebacking depth chart. I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought it was pretty interesting that they split Josh Wiley and Chigakonkwo as tight end 1 on the depth chart. I also think that they're probably playing two different roles within the offense. Brian Callahan clarified in a media availability this week that Josh Wiley is the Y tight end, Chig is more of the F player that we've heard about in recent weeks. So I think that has more to do with it than their where they're at competition-wise, competing for that top spot. I think most of all, the one thing that made me raise my eyebrows more than anything else on this depth chart, Owen, was seeing Mason Kinsey. Mason Kinsey, who the King of August, simply will not die, simply will not be denied, is currently on top of the depth chart as the team's top punt returner. What are your thoughts on Mason Kinsey? It feels like we go through this every summer with the guy. I think he's a great guy to have during the preseason. He's a reliable safety net kind of guy that you can use to really evaluate where your backup quarterbacks are at, where your other wide receivers are at. I think he's a great guy to have in camp, but he hasn't really cracked the top 53 in a meaningful way in meaningful regular season games just yet. It sounds like maybe winning this team's punt returning job could be his ticket to the main roster and finally getting a crack in game action. What do you think about Mason Kinsey's chances in this punt return battle, Owen?
Yeah, I don't know how much it is just faith in Mason Kinsey as much as it is if we put, Kyle Phillips back up there again, we're going to get sacrificed by the media. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like you said, he keeps on showing back up. So going into the year, I guess that's the best you can put out there, but I don't know if that's going to last.
Supposedly, so camp just ended for the morning. I'm not all caught up to news on all the press conferences, the media availabilities, the quotes and all that. But one thing that I did see was Kyle Phillips talking to the media and kind of saying that this coaching staff gave him a fresh start when it came to the punt return ability. I think he probably offers a little more in the receiving core, especially as long as DeAndre Hopkins is out. You probably need another guy to step up. But it sounds like the coaching staff may be willing to give him a clean slate when it comes to punt return duties. But I don't know. I mean, some of the drops that he had when he was returning punts, I kind of felt like, I don't know how you teach that. Like, it just kind of seems one of those mental things that he has to overcome. But if Phillips is a guy that wins a roster spot because he's a plus as a punt returner and he can contribute on offense as a wide receiver, are you okay with that? Are you okay with him being that guy as long as DeAndre Hopkins is out?
I mean, what other choice do you really have at this time? I don't feel great about it, if that's what you're asking. But I mean, I don't know what else you can do.
Well, this is the perfect segue because the guy I want to talk about is fourth on the depth chart, behind Kinsey, behind Kearis Jackson, behind Kyle Phillips. It's Jaquan Jackson, the rookie pick that was looking pretty good early on in the spring during OTAs and minicamp. But now this depth chart comes out, and where we thought he could make the most impact was as a return man, as he developed into a wide receiver. He's buried on down the depth chart, and the Jaquan Jackson hype train has kind of slowed down a little bit as training camp has started. I've heard from people that said he's getting kind of manhandled out there. It looks like he has a long way to go. And now we're at a point where some analysts that cover this team are thinking it might be a struggle for him to make this final roster. It might be a practice squad guy. Does it surprise you at all that the guy that they kind of drafted to be tailor-made for this kind of punt return / slot receiver role isn't really panning out so far? Or do you think this is a situation where this team's going to be patient with the guy and just let him work his way up the depth chart?
Yeah, it is kind of funny how the narrative has changed because, you know, around draft time, you know, everybody was high on him, and it seems like it's all kind of falling apart. So,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I'd say surprised, but, you know, maybe we just got this one wrong.
That's kind of, I mean, listen, I was on the air when the pick happened. Malik Washington out of Virginia was still available. That's who I wanted the Titans to pick. And now it sounds like he's kind of off to a great start with the Miami Dolphins. So I'm always going to kind of hang that over the head of the Titans if Jaquan Jackson doesn't pan out. I was pleasantly surprised to get the early reports that he was doing well. And I thought, man, you know what? This cat might just prove me wrong. But now it sounds like we're trending in a different direction, and I don't know that he's even a factor at all for this team right now. And that's where you start to think about it, like in that sense that, like you said, like, I mean, maybe they just got this wrong. And I tend to think that because he was a draft pick, he will get a pretty long leash, but I think he's a guy that kind of needs to get some of that momentum back because this is a crowded wide receiver room. Not necessarily saying it's an overly talented wide receiver room, but I just think it's one of the deeper position groups on the team. There's a lot of guys that are vying for competition. Kearis Jackson is a guy that I was pretty high on coming out of Georgia as an undrafted free agent. Injuries kind of hampered his growth, but it sounds like he might be getting an opportunity here. And then a guy that we haven't really talked about a lot is Bryce Oliver, an undrafted free agent rookie that seems to be making plays. I mean, his name's popping up from every camp practice so far. So I don't know. I don't think this is a situation where Jaquan Jackson necessarily has the luxury of time to develop. So I think this punt return battle will be an interesting position battle to watch. Was there anything else about the depth chart that stood out to you, Owen, that you want to talk about?
You know, I'm kind of looking over it right now, and nothing super stands out to me. It is interesting, and you already mentioned this, but just that the tight ends are stacked at one with Okonkwo and Wiley. Now, I'm just curious, how are the different roles for those two?
Yeah, man. My guess would be Wiley's going to be the more traditional inline blocking tight end, up the seam, across the middle, fullback kind of stuff. And I think Chig is going to be more motion, slot receiver, kind of outside the offensive line from a formation standpoint. I think it's going to be more dynamic open field stuff. Let's get the ball in Chig's hands and see if he can make a guy miss kind of stuff. Whereas Wiley, I think, will be closer to the traditional tight end that's going to throw a block and then sneak open up the seam and defenders don't see him coming. So that would be my best guess right now, but obviously remains to be seen. There's been one area of concern talking about the offense, because what I'm hearing out of camp is like Will Levis looks okay. They're missing on a lot of deep balls, specifically the chemistry between Will Levis and Calvin Ridley. The overall timing, the deep chemistry. I was curious, and I passed this along to our buddies at the press conferences. Said somebody asked Brian Callahan about what the trajectory that this offense is on from a timing perspective. Is this offense where he wants it to be from a chemistry standpoint, or are we a little off schedule here? It made it a similar question made it to the press conference. And I'm going to read Paul Kaharski's tweet from Brian Callahan. He said, "We missed too many of them early on," talking about deep shots. "Missed too many of them early on. It's not been great to start. With the install finish, we pulled up a lot of clips of go balls and spent 20 to 25 minutes reviewing them with the players. In yesterday's practice, this is afterwards, Levis did hit Ridley on a deep bomb that we still haven't gotten the video for from the Titans social media team. So you guys got to get on that. But I am starting to grow a little bit concerned that maybe this offense is going to take more time to gel and develop that chemistry than we originally thought. I think the first month of the season or so, this is going to be a team that runs the ball effectively and plays good defense, which is going to frustrate the hell out of Titans fans who have seen that for the last 25 years. But I think that's kind of where this offense is at right now. A little bit concerned that Levis isn't hitting those explosive throws and isn't finding that chemistry with Calvin Ridley right now. Do you think there's reason for concern, or do you think this is just the natural development of an offense kind of trying to find its footing before the season starts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's, time for major panic. I don't think it's time to sound the alarm by any means, but it's certainly not something you like to see. It could be way worse, University of Colorado is putting out fake videos that they're editing to make practice throws look like long bomb touchdown.
Yeah.
So we're not that bad. But yeah, I mean, it's a new receiver. It's a second-year quarterback. You're going to expect, some growing pains along the way. And like we've said the whole time, this is the time to figure it out. So, I don't think it's time to panic until it's game day, and it's not happening.
I'll tell you one thing. I am encouraged by the fact that Brian Callahan, I respect the fact and appreciate the fact that he's willing to go into a press conference and be kind of open about this and just say it's not been great to start, acknowledging that it's something they need to work on, but then showing examples, telling you how they're working on this stuff, that they're aware of it, they're trying to beat it, and then they go out on the practice field that day, and from several accounts, it sounds like they were a little bit better in that department. And from what I've read from this morning's camp so far, they're continuing to hit on that and grow on it. And I think that's the encouraging aspect of it. I just feel like maybe we're going to be butting up against the start of the season and still wondering what this really looks like. And I don't think it's a bad thing because, like I've said before, I do think this team's going to run more 12 personnel with Chig and Wiley on the field at the same time. Pollard and Spears, two good running backs, a revamped offensive line. I'm telling people, like, the writing's on the wall. I think this is going to be a pretty good rushing team, and I think they'll be able to lean on that with their aggressive defense as the deep bombs kind of come together. So I think it's okay. I'm with you. It's not time to panic, but there is this little thought in the back of my head that's just kind of like, maybe we should pay attention to this. But like I said, we do have a football game to talk about. San Francisco 49ers, Tennessee Titans. Owen, I think this is an awesome matchup to watch because the 49ers have some quality backups. They're not playing any of their starters on Saturday night, but their backups are still pretty damn good, and I think it's going to be a really good barometer of where this team is at heading into the season. Some guys that I am excited to watch. I'm going to start with Andrew Rupsich, who the coaching staff has basically said, you're in a competition with Dylan Radins right now. I think he's going to be a guy that's going to get a lot of run on Saturday with the backups in, and I'm really interested to see how he's looking. I think Jalen Harrell is another guy to watch. He's been showing up in camp this week. I'm going to read a quote, our buddy JT Runke of the Hot Read podcast and Broadway Sports, quoting Brian Callahan with high praise on rookie Jalen Harrell. Quote, "He's done everything right, shown real ability to rush, put him on a list of guys I'm really excited to watch play." I think he's going to play a lot on Saturday, and with the pending suspension of Arden Key looming, this is a team that needs some help in the pass rush. It would be fucking awesome if Jalen Harrell could develop into a contributing role. I'm also excited to see how they deploy the linebackers, Cedric Gray and James Williams. I want to see Cedric Gray with my own two eyes. I liked him a lot coming out of the draft, but he has been virtually a ghost throughout training camp so far. I haven't heard many good things about him outside of A to Z Sam Phelan shouting him out for the weekend practice. I want to see why they've got him so deep on the depth chart. Conversely, I think James Williams is going to be fun to watch. Reports are that he's thumping people out at camp. I want to see him do it in game action. He might kill a guy. I don't know. He is a deadly weapon in the open field. And then, you know what? I kind of want to see Kyle Phillips a little bit, see what kind of work he can do. Any names that you would like to add as guys to watch on Saturday, who you're most excited to see?
I do kind of have a question, and it kind of ties into that, but I know they're setting him up to be, they want him to be the best backup center he could be. But do you think there's any chance that they get Brunskill to get any reps at right guard?
I think it would be a last case scenario situation. And the reason why I say that is because they had the opportunity to pull him and play him at right guard this week, and the competition was between Radens and Rupsich. So I think Brunskill's a dog. I think he's scrappy. Mike Herndon called him more of a get-in-the-way blocker, and I think that's accurate. I think there's an element of power that's missing from his game when you're talking about running more gap concepts where you got to get guys down the field and moving people. I think there's an element of that that's missing from Brunskill's game. He's a little bit lighter than you'd like your right guard to be. Played admirably in Tim Kelly's zone system last year, where it is more reliant upon athleticism and movement than pure strength. So I think he's kind of a square peg in a round hole when you're talking about guard tackle play under Bill Callahan and what we think the Titans are going to run on offense. But I think it's not as big of a factor at center, where you can kind of get away with the smaller guy. I kind of think that's where they're leaning. That's what they've told us all offseason, that he's the backup center behind Lloyd Cushenberry. I think it would take Radens or Rupsich being an outright disaster for them to say, okay, you know what, we've got to slide Brunskill over here. At least that's my best guess as to where their head's at. But you raise an interesting point. They might tell us a little bit depending on how they deploy him in Saturday night's game. Anybody else or anything you wanted to add your opinion of Brunskill there?
No, I'm curious because I don't know if it's something that you can really address with an addition to the team
at this point.
It just kind of seems like, if they're going to do anything, it'll be for that outside linebacker, I think. But it just kind of seems like they're going to work with the pieces they have. So I was curious if maybe that'll come into play at all.
I had Caleb Farley on my list of guys to watch too, but it sounds like he injured a hammy that had been bugging him a little bit this week. Sounds like he injured it this morning, and they announced that he will be out for a couple of weeks, which sucks because I was starting to buy into the Caleb Farley comeback tour. From what we've heard from him out at camp, sounds like streamlining the defense a little bit has helped him out, and he's playing a lot better ball. So I hate to hear that with him, but any other guys you want to mention that you'll be keeping an eye on Saturday night, or are we good to get on out of here today?
No, I mean, I think I'm wanting to keep an eye on that outside linebacker, like we said, just because of the potential suspension. Nothing's happened yet from the NFL. We'll see how that goes. I think there's still an appeals process with that as well.
There is, yeah.
But just with the potential of it being out there, that would be interesting to study. And I'm excited to see Traylon Burks. They said the guy's worked his ass off all off season. I want to see what it looks like. I want to see what this new Traylon Burks is.
Oh, you know what? I am going to add a name. I forgot. I want to mention the backup left guard, Cole Spencer, undrafted guy out of Texas Tech, good athlete, got some good tape. I think he's going to get some serious run because I don't think Peter Skoronski is going to play more than a series, one drive, if that. And then I think they're going to plug Cole Spencer in at left guard, and I want to see the young buck go because I think he's an intriguing prospect. But that's enough talk about undrafted guard prospects. We are going to get out of here for the day. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Unofficial Titans podcast. Again, brought to you by Memo's Mexican Kitchen. In my opinion, the best Mexican food in the Nashville area. Worth the drive out to Mount Juliet, just a mile north of I-40 off the Mount Juliet exit. Owen, final message of hope about football being back. Any parting thoughts before we let them go today?
I mean, good, bad, or indifferent. It could be worse. It could be baseball season. I mean, we're here, guys. Make the best of it. The Olympics are almost over. Thank God. We're almost to football.
That'll do it for us. He is One Take O, Cinderella Man, outspoken Owen Reed. I am Big Natural Stoney Keeley. Rate, review, and subscribe to the Unofficial Titans podcast wherever you take in your podcasts. We're out there in those internet streets, baby. We ain't too hard to find. Thank you guys for listening. All of my work is up at SoBrosNetwork.com. Film Friday, Legarius Sneed tomorrow morning at StackingTheInbox.com. Let us know how we're doing, okay? We always want to be better for you guys. That's how we do it. He's Owen. I'm Stoney. And until next time, when we'll have an actual game to break down, this has been the Unofficial Titans podcast. You stay classy, Titans fans.